Hopefully, you already understand the role that power plays in an interpersonal relationship, and that in order to exert power over someone else, or for you to resist efforts of others to dominate you, you need to have some, let's say, tools or resources at your disposal. What types of resources? Well, I'm glad you asked because that's what this video is focused on, the power resources or currencies that can be used in interpersonal relationships to influence others to do what we want. We'll start with a brief discussion of terminology surrounding the basic concept, then focus on the five main power resources of legitimate, referent, expert, reward, and coercive power, then detour to a different way to think about power resources. You'll get a taste of rice. We'll end by touching on the ways we respond to power. Different textbooks and instructors may label and organize these power resources differently, so keep that in mind if you're going to be tested on this information. Let's start with the term I've been using, power resources, which others may call power sources, power currencies, power bases, forms of power, and so on. They all mean the same thing. What can you use or control so that people will do what you want? Say I'm your employer and I want you to work overtime. You might do this because, hey, I'm your boss. Or I could pay you extra or give you great hours. Threaten to fire you if you don't comply. Be just so nice that you can't say no. The options seem endless. On the flip side, you, as an employee, also have some power resources at your disposal. You can talk badly about me to others, threaten a lawsuit, or go to my superiors, look for another job. Again, lots of options. Even though this example doesn't seem to fit the definition of interpersonal power, those same kinds of power resources come into play in your interpersonal relationships, like your romantic ones or your friendships. And depending on your relationship with your boss, there could be some interpersonal stuff going on there too. Okay, on to the most common power resources. If you ask Google how many there are, you'll get anywhere from 4 to 7. And even though I listed 5 earlier, I'll be reorganizing them here also into LIERRP. That's LIERP with 2 R's, which is why I tried to roll them. My way of remembering them, the L stands for legitimate power, often called legitimate authority or sometimes just authority power. IE stands for information and expert power. Some theorists split these up. R is referent power, which some call personal qualities, and RP refers to reward and punishment, usually separated into two, reward power and coercive power. So even though I'm focusing on 4 power resources, they encompass the basic 5 or 6 depending on how you break them out. Starting with legitimate power, which is based on a person's position. If you do something because, from your perspective, the other person has the right to ask or tell you to do something, you've acknowledged the other person has legitimate power. Perhaps the person is a teacher, your boss, a parent. Hey, in the traditional 1950s marriage, the husband had legitimate power. If he told his wife he wanted dinner on the table at 5, dinner was on the table at 5. He was, after all, the husband, and at that time period, he enjoyed legitimate power. You did what the husband asked. But notice that I said from your perspective. If you don't grant someone legitimate power, that reduces their power over you. Information and expert power refers to someone's knowledge and experience. Do they have information that you need to know? Are they the only one who can perform a particular task? If so, you're likely to do what they ask because you can't get that information or do something yourself. My husband, the computer guru, knows what's coming up on the technological horizon, and I don't. That can give him information power. But his spelling is atrocious and mine is good, giving me some expert power when it comes to anything that needs to be formally written. 3 caveats when it comes to information and expert power. First, the information or expertise must be applicable to the situation. My spelling skills are for naught if there's nothing requiring proofreading. Second is that the information or expertise must be rare. If lots of people have that knowledge or expertise, say I have friends who are computer nerds, then that reduces the effectiveness of that power resource. Finally, there's an element of trust that has to be met. If you have knowledge or expertise, but I don't trust you, then I'm less likely to be influenced by you. Referent power is a fancy way of saying that you'll do things because you like someone or want them to like you. You may be loyal, respect or admire them, find them beautiful or charismatic. Heck, we even buy things that celebrities hawk because they are attractive and charming. If you've ever been persuaded by peer pressure, you've experienced the desire to gain approval aspect of referent power. That takes us to the RP part of the LEARP acronym, reward and punishment. Reward power is based on someone's ability to satisfy your needs, or what you think you need. If you need money, then someone who holds the purse strings has reward power. If you need a good grade, your professor has reward power. If you want someone to compliment you, write a letter of recommendation, or show you affection, that's also reward power, if you need any of those things. The flip side of reward power is coercive power, punishment. Sorry, but LEARC didn't make for an easily pronounceable acronym for me, so I changed the word from coercive to punishment. I tend to put these two together because, in some way, the withholding of a reward could be viewed as a punishment. You could be paid for your work, or have your pay docked, or given fewer hours so your pay is reduced. While professors could reward you with a good grade, they can also use that same grade as punishment. Again, if you reduce your need for a certain type of reward or can manage the punishment, the other person loses the ability to use this as a potential resource to control you. Now it's time for a taste of rice, another way to think about power resources, or, in the terminology of Joyce Hawker and William Wilmot Burton, power currencies. The term currencies is intentional here, as some people view them as similar to money. In the words of Hawker and Wilmot, power depends on controlling currencies that other people need. RICE is another acronym that stands for resource control, interpersonal connections, communication skills, and expertise. Resource control relates to someone's ability to manage things that people need: money, time, staffing, again, whatever you think you need. It is often related to someone's formal position or role. Like your boss controls who gets necessary items or personnel, your spouse may be the one in charge of your budget, or a parent who declares, "My house, my rules." And these resources can be tangible or intangible. You can see how this can connect with the reward and punishment power resource that we addressed earlier. Interpersonal connections, sometimes called linkages, are a result of who you know: your friends, family, professional acquaintances, your network. The cliche, "it isn't what you know, but who you know," is a good example of how this works. How many of you have a friend who knows where the best parties are? Perhaps this relates to the previously mentioned information power resource, or even, depending on how you use your linkages, reward power. Communication skills seem self-explanatory. How well can you create and maintain interpersonal relationships? People will do things for people they like. Remember referent power? They want to hang out with people who are fun, interesting, are charismatic. And being more practical, if you can communicate effectively, you are better able to explain what you need and be persuasive. An important aspect of this, however, is authenticity. Your communication must be real, and we must be able to trust you. If you come across fake or as if you have a hidden agenda, we are less likely to grant you power. And expertise, defined as special knowledge, skills, and talents that are useful for the task at hand. This is identical to the information and expert power we discussed earlier. Now let's move on to the last part of this discussion: how we might respond to power. There are three major responses: commitment, compliance, and resistance. We'll start with compliance, which just means that you will do what the other person is asking you to do. This usually happens when you've granted the other person legitimate or reward power. Commitment means that not only will you do it, you are supporting the person who is asking you to do it, usually because that person has referent or expert power. And resistance is what you do when you don't grant the other person legitimate authority, oftentimes actively working to limit or eliminate the other person's power. Now that you understand the most common power resources and how we respond to power, you can look at how these power resources are used in your interpersonal relationships. As we close, let me remind you of the concept of empowerment. If you can reduce your need to rely on the other person, you reduce that person's power over you. A quick example: I'm short, and I'm convinced that whoever designed kitchen cabinet placement was a tall male. When I want to reach the top shelf, it's easy to ask my husband to do it for me, so he has power. Until I reduce his power by getting a step stool or redistributing what goes on the top shelf, I'm empowering myself. If you are watching this video to gain information that will help you in a class or at work, you are reducing your reliance on others and empowering yourself with education. So, go forth and be empowered. Develop your own power.